Let's do a body meditation. We'll do a body meditation, a kind of scanning. And the way I describe this is to try to get that sense of background and foreground. So what I'll say, I'll direct your attention to one part of the body, say your face and your mouth. And then the language I'll use is, let's say I direct your attention to the mouth. And I'll say, let the feelings in your mouth become conscious. Now I use that language deliberately because I'm not asking for a hard focus, like concentrating on the mouth. What I'm asking for is like an open awareness localized around the mouth where the sensitivity in the teeth and the tongue and the lips becomes conscious. And why I do that is because I'm emphasizing actually awareness rather than that part of the body. And then I'll go to another part of the body, your eyes, your nose, same idea. So it's not like if you find that your eyes are straining or your head's getting tight, that means you're kind of really focusing, which can be used at other times. But now I would ask you, can you just keep the mind open and then localize attention on one area and let the feelings become conscious? So if there are strong bodily feelings, good. If not, no problem. You're not looking for a particular feeling. You're just aware of feelings as they come and they go. That's the sort of principle. Okay, so let's do that. And we'll sit for 45 minutes with that one. But let's begin with sound. Listen to sound. Let the sounds come to you. Notice the changing nature of sound and what's unchanging. Feel your hands. Notice the changing nature of tactile feelings in the hands. And what's unchanging. So I suggest awareness is the unchanging. So you can't find awareness as an object, you can only be aware. Bring your attention to your face. Bring attention to your mouth. Localize your attention at the mouth. Let the feelings in the mouth become conscious. Feel the lips. So notice I name one part of the body, then your attention is localized there, and then you just wait. And then some sensations start to manifest. Or nothing. Teeth. Tongue. Feel the whole mouth now as a mass of sensations. Let it become conscious in awareness. This is an experience in awareness. Non-becoming, non-resistance. It's like this. So the mind gains some composure, some settledness. Bring attention to your ears, the outer structures of the ears. Let that become conscious. Inside the ear canals. Not looking for anything, but observing what is. So each time we shift to another part, the mind composes around that. Bring attention to the nose, the bridge of the nose, and the nostrils. Let that become conscious. So if you're focusing on the nose too hard, you'll feel pressure in the eyes. Just keep the mind open, aware, feeling the nose. Bring attention to the eyes, the eye sockets, the bony parts. A large area, a lot of vibration. Let that be conscious. Feel the eyes themselves, the eyeballs. Non-becoming, non-resistance. It's like this. Feel the temples. Feel the pressure or vibration in the temples, right and left. Let that be conscious. Feel the top of the head. Feel the back of the head. Feel the whole head now as changing vibrations, pressures in awareness. So this isn't a description with language. It's an experience with feeling. So awareness of the head in awareness, knowing in awareness the head. Bring attention to your neck. Feel the throat, sides, and back of the neck. Vibrations, pressures in awareness. Non-becoming, present moment awareness. Silent knowing. Shoulders. Right shoulder. Let that be conscious. Upper arm, right side. Right elbow. Right forearm. Wrist, back of the hand, palm of the hand, and fingers. Feel the whole hand as vibrations in awareness. Feel the whole right arm to the right shoulder in awareness. Left shoulder, let that be conscious. Stay with it. Try not to go to thinking. Left shoulder, left arm, upper arm. Let that be conscious. Left elbow, forearm, left wrist, and the left hand. Whole left side. So each time we name part, you kind of settle into it. And you notice the silence of awareness. to the torso, to the body, the chest region, upper body. Feel the front of the chest, clothing, pressure, movement. Feel the upper rib cage. Upper spine. Feel the lungs and the heart. Upper body, conscious in awareness. Silent awareness. The abdominal area. Feel the front of the abdominal area. Lower rib cage. Lower spine. And the organs inside, stomach, intestines, kidneys, liver, whatever you feel, you don't have to find them. Make conscious the abdominal area. Let it become conscious in silent awareness. Pelvic region, feel the pelvic region. Feel the pelvic bones. The organs in the pelvic region. Silent knowing. The right hip, feel the right hip. Feel the thigh, the right thigh. The right knee. Calf and foreleg, lower part of the right leg. Right ankle and right foot. Let that be conscious. Non-becoming, silent knowing. The left hip. Left thigh. Left knee. Shin and calf, left leg. Ankle and foot, left side. Both legs, from hip to foot, make that conscious. Let that be conscious. Silent knowing, in awareness. Feel the torso, pelvis to shoulders. Arms, shoulders to hands. Neck and head. Step back, as it were. Feel the whole body now as vibration, not as concept, as pressure, as pain, as heat, in awareness, changing in awareness. This I call full body awareness. I use this in the lying practice. Full body awareness. Notice the changing nature of bodily sensations. Notice the unchanging awareness. Listen to sound. Perceive sound as in awareness, an object in awareness. Feel the body. Perceive body as changing sensations in awareness. Notice that the awareness is the same. Sound, body. So perceive awareness as conscious space. Bodily feelings, sounds, thoughts, emotions coming and going in the space of awareness. So I'll leave that. You can then carry on, use the breath, or just sit in this open awareness, or do more of the body practice. But I'll just kind of set things up for you in that sense. And let's just sit quietly for the rest of the time. Again, with the tendency to be attached to thinking, when you notice that you have been thinking, that's the end of thought. So rather than trying to do something to get rid of thought, I suggest just opening your mind, listening, and establishing that silent awareness. Get that step's very important. And then do whatever practice you like to do to sustain that silent knowing. So it takes a lot of patience. So we have an hour and a half left. So why don't we do some walking meditation? Let's say 45 minutes. And then come back and do some more sitting. Okay? Please go ahead. I'll just walk in. Oh, you're walking? Yeah.
Last, pay respect to Ajahn by making 3 bows.
So, continuing with these ideas, the third, I assume that everyone is familiar with the Four Noble Truths. I can assume that, yeah. Third Noble Truth is Nirodha, and it's a good one to contemplate because what it says is that the end of suffering is the end of desire. So our deepest desire is the end of desire. That's what we yearn for. Or that's what the Buddha would define where our deepest desire can be satisfied, in non-desire. And if you take that on board and think about your meditation practice, then if you are trying to get something, some experience, or you're trying to get rid of something, thoughts or emotions, then your underlying intention is actually desire. And if the underlying intention is desire, and you don't see that, then the result will not be peaceful. And yet, we have desire. Yeah? I want to be free. I want to be peaceful. I want to be free of anger. So there's wholesome desire and unwholesome desire. There's skillful wanting and unskillful wanting. There's egotistical wanting and good energy. But in terms of experience, if I want a particular kind of experience, all experience as we experience it through the senses is dependent on other things. It's contingent. It depends. So it's unstable. We know that. So dependent origination, anicca, dukkha, anatta, all these teachings are pointing to the frailty of experience, to the limitation of experience, to the dukkha of experience. So if my attitude and intention in meditation is to get an experience, it seems to me that can't be correct. Because if I have to get something in the future, that means it has to be born into consciousness. And if something is born, it will die. So it seems to me that what's very important is the ideas around akalika Dhamma, time, not a matter of time. And you can see that desire is about time. I don't want this experience, I want another experience. I want to get rid of this, vibhava tanha, I want to get that, whatever it might be, bhava tanha, vibhava bhava tanha. So if you take that on board and then you kind of consider, how do I actually meditate? Well, how do I do this work? Then attitude is primarily important rather than technique. So you can have many kinds of techniques, but I think attitude has to be considered and known. And the attitude should be in line with non-desire, non-becoming, akalika Dhamma, here and now Dhamma, being aware here and now. And I like to put, as I was saying this morning, I like to put that language into my own consciousness as I meditate to make sure there isn't a sense of trying to get something, trying to understand something, or trying to get rid of something, but actually witnessing what actually is. What is it like now, here? And that should then take the attention to awareness itself, rather than any particular object. The model I was presenting earlier was the model of sound, foreground and background. Go back to that. Sound is coming and going, it's changing. It has qualities. Thank you. Sound has qualities, so it can be beautiful or not beautiful or neutral. And yet awareness of sound, if I'm receptive, awareness of sound has no quality. Correct? If you get what I mean. I could hear a Bob Dylan song. I don't listen to Bob Dylan anymore. It's been 50 years. But I could hear a Bob Dylan song. I'd be very attracted to that because I listened to Bob Dylan a lot in college. So my mind would be attracted to it. It would be beautiful to my sanya, to my perception. Or I could hear some caustic noises outside, and that would be unbeautiful to my mind, pleasant and unpleasant. But does awareness have any quality? Can you say that awareness is pleasant or that awareness is unpleasant? Well, I would say no. It knows pleasant and it knows unpleasant. So if you follow that logic, then knowing is always here and now. Sound depends on causes and conditions. Sound is an experience. But knowing doesn't depend on experience. So where peace must lie is in the knowing itself, in awareness itself. And that's what I'm trying to portray in this model of background and foreground. Thank you. Okay, then take that to something like emotions, something more difficult. Let's say you feel socially anxious. You come into like the joke I always tell people is, okay, tomorrow's morning talk, I won't give it, but we'll all put our names in a bowl, and I'll take one name out of the bowl, and whoever's name is called up, they'll give the talk. I bet you some people are going to be nervous, right? And that's social anxiety. Even though we're all friends and you'll get fed no matter what you say, you'll probably be nervous. Huh? And so that is an object. Fear or social anxiety in this sense is an object in awareness. And it's more difficult to notice than sound, but it's the same principle. So let's say we torture you that way. I won't do it. But we do that experiment, and then as soon as I said, I'm going to put your name in a hat, you probably wouldn't do it. I'm not going to do this. Or if your name was in the hat, you'd probably start thinking, what am I going to say, what am I going to say, what am I going to say? And that would be social anxiety. That would be fear. Now, you might then write out the talk you're going to give, or have notes, or have a sutta or something, and then you'd be alleviating the fear by having something to say, which would be fine. But what if you then said, well, fear is an experience, it's an object in awareness, and you witness to fear as an object? What would happen then? Well, your tendency then to attach to fear would fall away more and more, because you'd say, well, fear is just an object. It comes and it goes. But that which is fearless is actually awareness, because awareness has no emotional quality. What happens with that? And you could apply this principle to anger, or to annoyance, or to jealousy, or to resentment, all manner of emotions, to love, to attachment, to relationships. So if you did that, and you now were taking the position that awareness is important rather than the emotion, what happens? Well, from my experience, the negative emotions of fear, of anger, of resentment, of worry, all those different ways that we can suffer, they are no longer identified as me and mine. They are objects, and there is individuality. We still have to endure them. But in the witnessing of them and noticing as objects, then they tend to cease. They tend to go to the cessation, to the quietness of the mind. And this is a way to think about Nirodha. How do emotions actually cease in your mind? And I didn't do that, honest. I'm not such a good monk yet. Yeah, I could. Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? So my own experiences, say around something very powerful like fear and anxiety, is that when fear and anxiety came into my mind, I thought that the fear and anxiety was the problem. Or I would just believe in the fear and anxiety. But then my teacher, Luang Sumedho, would say, well, no. This isn't biological fear. You're not being attacked by a bear. This is just social conditioning that you have from childhood or whatever. The problem is actually craving. The problem is the wanting. And this is very important, understanding how to use the Four Noble Truths. You have to have a correct diagnosis. So my habitual personality mind would say, I don't want that fear. Well, of course I don't want fear. So I would avoid the fear and get away from the fear so I wouldn't have the fear. But then, being sort of trapped into situations where fear would have to come up, Luang Sumedho kept directing me to, go back to the fear and look at what is the problem. Is it the experience, or is it the desire not to have the experience? And that took me a while, but I saw, fear is just vipaka kamma. It's just the resultant karma of my childhood, of my culture, whatever the reasons are. It has its life. It has karma. It comes into consciousness. So then I began to see, the problem here is actually the rejection or the resentment or the trying to get rid of fear. And I began to understand what we mean by vibhava tanha, the desire to get rid of. As I saw that, and Luang Por kept encouraging me, he says, you have to welcome the fear, but not in a way which was harmful to me, just in a way of welcoming. I began to see the larger implications of metta bhavana. So metta bhavana, we typically think of it in a dualistic way. May I be well, may you be well, may I be well, may my dog be well. Okay, we know how to do that. But in a more non-dualistic way, I would say, I think that awareness and metta are really one thing, in the sense that all conditions arise and cease according to nature, and the acceptance of them as natural is the way of awareness. So then awareness and acceptance become an interesting contemplation. Acceptance doesn't mean condoning. So if I feel angry at someone and I yell at them, that's not acceptance, that's indulgence. But if I feel angry for some reason, and the anger comes up, and I say, anger feels this way, and I trust in awareness. I trust in awareness rather than trusting in my trying to get rid of, and I bear witness to the anger in my body or in my mind. Then I see the anger arises, stays a while, and ceases. Not just in that moment, but as a habit in mind. It begins to cease as a habit in mind. As it ceases, I'm more and more free from anger, free from fear. But what that requires is a correct diagnosis of the problem and a lot of patience, because we all have vipaka kamma. We have different kinds of kamma. So if one is training in awareness of the way things are, first and foremost, how is it? And something comes up which is perceived in a negative way, such as pain, discomfort, emotional negativity, things like that. And you first of all, you say, pain feels like this, or fear feels like this, or resentment feels like this. You just make it conscious what's going on. Then you'll see if you're resisting it or you're lost in it. But if you never make it conscious, like really let it be there, then of course there's a reaction to it, and the reaction's habitual. So in the instance of like fear, I mean, I don't suffer from fear now. I did a lot before as a young guy. But when it came up, its manifestation was very unpleasant. Very unpleasant. I would have panic attacks and things like that. So its manifestation in consciousness was not fun. You know, it wasn't pleasant. But that's the whole structure of suffering. Is pleasant, begets craving, begets attachment, begets rebirth. Right? Passa, Vedana, Tanha, Upadana, if you do dependent origination. So if you're just like practicing, it's like this, it feels like this, then you should begin to see the resistance or the being lost in it. And that's really the key, because that's the key around tanha, around craving. So what you need to consider in your own life, where do the conditions of your social life, of your body life, of your emotional life, where do they manifest as a strong sense of ego? You know, what kind of thinking patterns are most obsessive in your mind? So if I'm if I'm a person who is very self-judgmental, maybe, okay, so maybe that's a pattern that has come to me because maybe my parents were rough on me and they said I was no good, and then I come into adulthood and I think I'm no good. That's a really strong pattern, and it's not uncommon. And so the emotional conditioning is coming from childhood, and the manifestation is in thought. I'm no good, I'm not good, I'm not up to the mark, I should be better, I should be better. Mindfulness then wakes up to that. Oh, this is a feeling of self-hatred. This is a feeling of self-criticism. This is a feeling of self-judgment. If I wake up to that, then I'm the witness. I know this is an object, that's not who I really am. If I don't wake up to that, then that's what I get reborn into, constantly. Reborn into thoughts of self-disparagement. So I would ask you to, and we all do this because we're intelligent beings, but where in your own inner world, where does a sense of self manifest most strongly? What kind of a creation? So I was talking to the organizers of the retreat in Thailand we just finished, and there were 5 sisters they're the angel group. They do a lot of humanitarian work, and they also organize retreats. And so we got to talking about women's problem with beauty and gray hair. I don't have a problem with hair. No problem. Gray, I just get rid of it every 2 weeks. But they were saying how powerful their social identity is with beauty. And then they were talking about the use of Botox and other kinds of things to try to create a beautiful face forever and ever and ever. And when you think about it, that's a very cultural thing. That's a powerful cultural imperative to be a certain way. To be a certain way. And I remember we have an elderly Sri Lankan friend in the monastery, and she was getting older and older, but her hair was getting blacker and blacker. I said, how do you do that? Jokingly. But then one day she came, she was white-haired. I said, oh, no, you're beautiful. because she was very much attached to her sense of youth and beauty, right? And you can see how that cultural construct, that cultural kind of pressure creates a sense of self-identity, and which is actually quite cruel when you think about it. I guess it's very good for the beauty industry, but we have many things like that, which come from our families, which come from our particular culture, come from whether we are male or female, or we were the youngest in the family or the oldest in the family, a whole range of conditions where the sense of self has been programmed into us. And not to make a judgment about that, it is, but freedom is not a personality. Freedom is the awareness of these personality traits coming and going. And so I think social anxiety, social identity, these kinds of fears, if they can be known, it doesn't mean you can't dye your hair, if they can be just known as objects and not believed in and not bought into, then a tremendous amount of freedom. So hopefully, like during this retreat, if this model works for you, I don't know if it does, foreground, background, if you just work with ordinary conscious experience, walking, sitting, hearing, and try to get a sense of relaxed attention, open awareness, resting the mind rather than always doing something and getting something and controlling something and doing a technique. And if you get a feeling for that, then that becomes operative in the times of stress. Because stress is always when the conditions of the world are really pulling you out into all kinds of ways of suffering. And if you have a way of saying, oh, that's an object, that's not who I really am, you have a way of relaxing the mind and resting in the mind, then you have refuge. That's what we mean by refuge. The challenge of thinking is the great challenge, I would say, because in the silence of the mind, wisdom has a chance to arise. If we're always thinking, and we're programmed to think, if we're always thinking, then our consciousness is not available to truth, because we're just in thought. We're not available to silence. We're not available to the unconditioned. We're preoccupied. And what we want to do in meditation is learn to be not preoccupied with thinking, with doing, with techniques, just a sense of open awareness, which isn't a preoccupation, it's just knowing how it is. Many people don't trust this. Many people think, no, come on, you got to have a technique. I've got to get something out of this, I've got a goal, and I've got 2 goals. And that, okay, it's valid, I would say, but how much of that is social conditioning? If I work, I have to get something for my work, and so I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to get a result. This is a bit different, and this is the path of letting go. I find in Buddhist literature, in Buddhist teaching, there seem to be two modes, many modes, but 2 that I like to differentiate. One is the mode of attainment, levels of samadhi and levels of insight, let's say, roughly speaking. And then there's the mode of letting go. And that's the kind of mode that Luang Cha and Luang Samedo have always taught me. So the mode of letting go is it takes a little patience, but let's say I feel I'll get an example. Let's say you and I argued this morning, okay? Ooh. So I sit here now, and I have the kamma, the vipaka kamma, of having spoken roughly to you. If I'm sensitive at all, I'll feel that. I'll feel that as regret or as resentment. So then I finally stop my social constructs, and I sit down, and then I just feel the arising of memory and the emotion based on memory. What is letting go there, or what would be the path of letting go? It would be the path of letting be. I would just know, well, with that morning as cause, there is this afternoon as a result. And I would say to myself, be careful, Viradhammo, each time you get lost in that, you're going to get this result. So I would look at causality, but causality being what it is, I say, well, yeah, this is the way it is. This is nature. Nature is this way. And I might feel resentment. I might feel self-hatred. Then my task would be to not go to thought. Because the resentful thoughts would be blaming this person, and the self-hatred thoughts would be blaming this person. But both would be blaming, both would be ego, both would be attachment. So letting go would be letting be. Aversion feels this way. Resentment feels this way. Self-hatred feels this way. It feels like this. So I'd be coming back to the witness rather than be caught up as the subject of thinking. And if I did that, 2 things would happen. The witnessing consciousness would become stronger. Awareness would become stronger. And the tendency, this historical tendency, would tend to fall away. And that's the path for me of letting go or letting be. I'm not trying to dominate this condition now and get rid of it by doing anapanasati or even by doing metta bhavana. Although that might be good. I'm just facing up. Well, it's like this. It feels like this. And with patience, I begin to see that things arise and cease, and I find my home ground. Well, that's the way I like to practice, live my life, and also I like to those are the models that work for me in meditation. Again, if it works for you, good. If it doesn't work for you, good. Whatever you do, you want to just reflect on the teaching and use it as a reflection rather than as a position. There are many ways that these things are taught. So why don't you stretch your legs, and then we'll do a bit more meditation. I'll do a guided meditation. And stretch your legs a bit. A lot of questions. I don't know how many I'll answer. Thank you for conducting this retreat. Pardon my ignorance. Please enlighten how does body scanning help in the meditation? As for walking meditation, how to do it well to achieve good concentration. Thank you for your guidance. Awareness of the body is... we are, as human beings, we are embodied, and to have awareness of the body is a piece of information that seems to be very important in understanding our human condition. And then quite often we push the body for work or for excitement or for sensual reasons, or we feel the body when it has a lot of pain. So there's that. And we use the body for work. We use the body for all manner of things. But in what I'm trying to portray in meditation is the capacity to be the witness of phenomena which arise and cease. So I don't know if I'm getting that across. I don't know if you're understanding what I'm pointing to. So the body is a phenomena in nature, and has its own activity according to its age and how it's been treated. And so do the emotions, the emotional life. So that the bodily life that we experience can be a very good way to monitor something like fear, say, in talking about fear. If the only avenue of understanding fear is through thought, then I tend to be up in the head all the time with fearful thoughts or judgmental thoughts. But I can also experience emotions in the body. When I experience emotions in the body, it's much easier to be objective. When I experience emotions through thought, then I become the subject very easily. So say something like fear and anger, the very gross kind of energies, but when you have enough awareness of let's say, like with anger or fear, you'll feel it a lot in your belly, in your heart. You feel tension in your neck. So if you have good body awareness, then I'm not saying they will, but if those conditions arise through the activities of daily life, then you've got a way of knowing, oh, fear feels like this. Or you're getting annoyed at someone as you're talking with them, and they're just getting up your nose and you're getting annoyed at them. You feel it in your body. So your body becomes a kind of wisdom vehicle for understanding various things. One thing about, I think, body awareness is I think the heart chakra is a very important energy to understand. For me, it's very, very important. So the feelings of love and connection, seems to me, you can feel them here. So when you, let's say you have a child or a grandchild, and the child brings to you a little drawing they've done in kindergarten, and it's a child's drawing, but you're so moved by the beauty of the child and the the happiness of the child, that you experience what we call mudita. You feel the heart opening, you're with the child, you're happy for the child. And that heart opening is to me the end of ego. It's not an egotistical feeling, but it's a connection. It's a connection to this child at this time, and with other things. Or if the child bruises its knee, falls down, it was doing too much skateboarding, or I haven't seen any skateboards in Singapore. Do people skateboard? I don't know. Anyway, the child falls, bruises its knee, and then you're there. And well, the natural response is kindness and compassion, and I think we feel it here. I feel it here. So, developing awareness of that is a very good thing. It's a very joyous thing. It's a very healthy thing. So that's one aspect of bodily meditation, and we call it metta bhavana, or the development of loving kindness, and maybe I'll do that tomorrow. So there's ways of touching into good bodily energies and negative bodily energies. Like annoyance is a stressful thing. You feel annoyed, you start to get uptight, and you can feel that. And if you feel that, you have a chance, oh, that's what's happening. Let go, relax. But in terms of like walking meditation and sitting meditation, what I'm trying to indicate is that there's a peaceful background to all experience. And experience through the senses, and I would include the mind and emotions and thoughts, is ever-changing. And it's positive and negative. It's good and it's bad, it's lovely, it's beautiful, it's not beautiful. But there's a background to our existence, and that background is silent awareness. And that to me is my real home. And that to me is the sort of possibility of human peace. Consider like the feeling of confidence. Let's say you feel confident about something. It might be your tennis game is good or your meditation went well. The feeling of confidence is an object, right? It's something, it's a thing. Different than the feeling of insecurity. Insecurity is a different thing, right? They're two things. And they're common. You can feel confident on top of the world, and then you can feel lack of confidence. You can feel insecure. And that's the nature of our existence. And we do as much as we can to be confident, but inevitably confidence can switch to a lack of confidence. But what is it that is aware of that? So whatever is aware of that is not confident and is not unconfident, because you couldn't know the difference between the two if there weren't something that knew that. Like if you just had confidence, confidence can never know a lack of confidence. They're two different things. But the awareness, the knowing, knows that there is this changing mode of mental operation, confidence, and that it has changed into a lack of confidence. So on one hand, we need to build confidence, we need to build skill, and we need to deal with our lack of confidence. But that's the area of worldly dharmas, which are important. And that's the area of being skillful in business transactions or skillful in relationships. So that has its place. But to me it seems that there's a spiritual dimension to all of this, which isn't really an emotional thing. It's not like confidence or lack of confidence, something that's behind that. And so the way I kind of talk about that is that confidence arises and ceases in awareness. Lack of confidence arises and ceases in awareness. It's a kind of perception, which I'm trying to encourage, where you start to perceive awareness as conscious space. And that's a kind of nebulous perception. It's not so concrete. But like if I ask you right now, does confidence have does awareness have a flavor? chocolate, vanilla? I mean, it's a ridiculous question. And yet, you know chocolate and vanilla. You might like chocolate, you might like vanilla. So, does awareness have a smell? Does it smell like durian? I hope not. Or does it smell like perfume? You can't. I mean, it's ridiculous again, right? Is awareness feminine or masculine? You can know, like if you are incarnate in a feminine body, you know femininity. I don't. I know masculinity. That's the incarnation that I'm in. But that's still an object. It's individual, but it's really not awareness, right? So you play around with that, and that, to me, that leads me to a kind of curiosity. What is awareness itself? And then I can never get beyond that. I can only know there is awareness. Say, does awareness have an outer edge? Is it like 2 meters to the left? Is it like 1.5 feet above you? Is it below the floor or above the floor? I mean, again, it doesn't make sense. Does awareness have a center? Try that. It's no, I can't find it. Like a thing, like a me. I can't find that myself. I don't see it there. So, or I just play around with this kind of stuff. It's quite fun. This is what I get paid to do. But it's quite interesting because what I'm doing now is I'm reflecting on awareness itself rather than the objects of awareness. And from my own understanding and my own training from Luang Sumedho and Luang Cha is that awareness is the gateway to the deathless. It's a gateway to peace. And a gate or a doorway participates of both spaces. So that doorway, when it's open, participates in a space outside and inside. And that's the sort of metaphor you can think of about the realization of Nibbana, or the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated, the unformed. This language that we have in Theravada Buddhism is pointing to something which is very, very nebulous, and we say that awareness is the opening to that possibility. So when I ask you to say, does awareness have a flavor or gender, it's not that you get an answer, but you start to ponder awareness itself. Not intellectually, because intellectually thought is still thought, right? But actually experientially. Like, what is awareness? And all you know that it is. There is the experience of presence. And my suggestion is that craving and wanting goes out into the objective world, which we need. If I'm thirsty, I need to drink water. If I've got a broken leg, I better go to the hospital. That's the way it is. But is that all there is? Is existence just about experience? Is about just constantly accumulating experience and consuming experience? Well, I don't think the Buddha was teaching that. He was saying that experience is anicca dukkha anatta. And dukkha in this sense means you won't find the unconditioned in a condition. You won't find peace in that which is always changing. So where do you find peace? So this is really what I'm trying to portray in this retreat. So in terms of like walking meditation, again, the question was, sorry, I rubbished you. My apologies. As for walking meditation, how to do it well to achieve good concentration. And when I don't know about you, again, I don't know how much you've practiced, so forgive me if I'm just repeating myself, but when I started walking meditation, I would just try to control the mind. So I'd set up my meditation path, and then I had quite a long path, maybe 30 paces, and I'd set my mind, I'm not going to think. I'm not going to think. 2 steps later, I'm thinking. And then I'd feel really depressed. Okay, I'm really going to control my mind now. No thoughts, no thoughts. 2 steps, and I'm thinking again. So my whole idea of meditation as I started was really quite wrong, but that's how you start. You start somewhere. And it was about control. it really wasn't about awakening. And even though my teacher said, "Oh, just be aware," I was always trying to get rid of thought, control the mind, control the emotions. And then as I began to understand that the awakened mind is different than the controlling mind. I can use controlling behaviors if I need to for whatever reason, but this is not about concentrating in that sense. It's more about staying in the present moment, awake and aware with walking. Right? So you're walking with awareness, rather than just trying to control your mind so you don't think. And the way I suggested we could do that would be at the end of the meditation path, you're planning something and, oh, it's like this. So that's awakened mind, which isn't an experience that is built up like some fantastic samadhi. It's very ordinary, knowing life is this way now, I feel this way now. And that doesn't seem very productive, because the thinking mind is so, the volume sometimes is massive, right? Just like, will you be quiet up there? It just goes on and on and on. And so just awakening doesn't seem very productive. You think, no, I have to control. But it is productive. If you just trust in awareness, then walking, you know, every now and then you notice and you stop. It's like this. And then you try to sustain that aware walking from A to B, from B to A to B, B to A. And over time, you develop the skill of awakening. Now, we as human beings have this capacity to develop skills. And whatever experience you have now in this retreat, the experience will change. Yeah? Sorry. So if you have peaceful experience, it'll change. If you have horrible experience, it'll change. But what you can take away from any bits of life is skill. That you can do. You can have skills which aren't the same as an experience. So you can have like an experience in meditation and just kind of, wow, I saw the devas finally, or something like that, and the next day feel really depressed because you're restless or whatever. But what I would suggest is the skill of awakening, and that's, I think, the primary skill of Buddhism. You can cultivate that again and again and again. So no matter how confused the mind is, you can say to yourself, wow, this is confusing. And you're awake. Or, wow, I'm really feeling a lot of jealousy. Jealousy feels like this. You're awake. If you, however, think that Buddhism is about having some really cool emotions all the time, you're in trouble. You're going to really be disappointed. So cool emotions are good, and we try to cultivate generosity, we try to cultivate loving kindness, and they're beautiful and they're important. But at times you're not going to feel beautiful emotions. You're going to feel terrible emotions. No problem. Practice right speech. Don't kill anyone. Don't rob a bank. And know, oh, this is a horrible emotion. So that's a skill we can develop, no matter what our if we're sick or we're very happy or we're unhappy, we can always develop the skill of awakening. And everything should unfold from that, because when the mind is awake, you see cause and effect, insight can arise, and then from the insight you can start thinking rightly. Samadhi is right understanding. Sammasankappa is right thinking, not just abstract thinking. So, like right thinking would be, I feel disappointed because the clock doesn't work. It does work, but oh my God, I just bought that clock. What's that? Oh, it's terrible. It cost me $5. Disappointment feels this way, and I'm awake again. I can take the clock back, I can throw it in the garbage, I can do what I want, but in that moment I can actually awaken, oh, disappointment feels this way. Now that is not huge, but it is huge, because often we feel disappointment. So then our liberation or our freedom or peace is not dependent on the clock or anything else. It begins to recede into the awareness of change. So that's the principle I sort of promote and sell. I don't know. I hope that's helpful. how to remove feeling sensual pleasure when we see that we are having wholesome feeling. I don't get it. Could someone rewrite that question and give me more context next time? Yeah? I don't quite get it. I'm happy not to know. I don't know everything. Like if you're a teacher and you can say, I don't know, that's a great freedom. If you're a teacher and think you know everything, you're in trouble. I can do my walking meditation much longer than sitting meditation, maximum 30 minutes. Are there reasons for this? You just like walking better than sitting. I don't know, maybe you're 90 years old, I'm not sure, but it doesn't really matter. You can do standing, sitting, walking, cutting vegetables. Vegetables take a bit more focus. Right? If you get too much into the openness, you'll cut your fingers off. But like sitting can seem really much more, I suppose, like meditation. You're looking like a Buddha image. But if you're if you're considering awareness, does it really make a difference? Shouldn't do. It's just a change of posture. Right? So certainly some postures can give you more tranquility. But tranquility, if it's dependent on posture, then that can't be the unconditioned. Certainly I can develop sitting meditation and then use that tranquility to understand myself more. But as an attachment itself, it's attachment to tranquility. I think all of us have had that. You really get a really lovely, tranquil state of mind. You think, I've got it. Tomorrow you're going to lose. You try to get it, it won't work. So if you see awareness is not dependent on posture, although simplicity helps. So it's much easier to be aware in a simple situation than it is in a complex situation. So we have retreats, we do simple things like this. But in the Forest tradition, a lot of my peers and fellow practitioners do a lot more sitting than walking. Depends on their nature. A lot of monks have drowsiness. Like one of the great hindrances in meditation is dullness. Dullness is a very hard hindrance to actually negotiate because you don't know you're meditating. You kind of, if you think you were meditating but you're not sure you were asleep. If you're meditating, you know you're meditating. So this kind of that kind of nodding into comfort is quite a strong defilement. Many meditators have, monks too. It's not an easy one. So then people just get up and do walking. So in our monastery, let's say there's maybe a couple of monks. They say, I just have so much drowsiness in the morning. So okay, if I do walking, I said, sure, yeah. Do walking practice. Morning isn't good for you. So developing both is, I think, very, very useful. Rather than have any kind of judgment that one is better than the other. I know for myself, say, my early years of monasticism, my mind was very coarse. Lots of anger and lust and things like that and fear. So sitting was so difficult, but walking was great. And I'd just tear a strip off. I'd just be walking up and down with whatever. And there was one stage where a lot of repressed anger was coming in. This was 50 years ago, by the way. I'm okay now. But a lot of repressed anger was coming up, and I was trying to do metta bhavana. May all beings be well, but I hated everyone. So I really felt like pathetic, actually. And then Luang says, no, you just swear. Huh? Just swear for, 5 minutes, see what happens. And of course, if I just made conscious the anger, the repressed anger, then, okay, now I'm aware. Rage feels this way. Anger feels this way. Now I'm actually aware of the problem. I'm not the problem of the sankhara, of how it is. So sometimes, like walking meditation, you can walk really fiercely because there's a lot of energy. Sometimes you can do mahasi, really, really slow if you want. Kind of experiment. If all things arise and cease in awareness, how does intention emerge? How is it sustained? Well, we are beings that long for happiness, wouldn't you say? You know, if you're hungry, you kind of look for some food. So biologically, we're conditioned to get out of suffering. If we have a bear that visits the monastery every now and then, when I see the bear, I don't say, I love you. I say, I'm getting out of here. So biologically, happiness for me depends on survival. The bear will eat me if I'm too friendly with him. So there's that. There's the seeking of comfort and well-being. So there's intention there, right? I see I'm thirsty, and intention arises to drink water because I'm thirsty. So intention is natural. So because we are happiness-seeking beings, we also seek happiness on psychological levels. So we seek security of the known, comfort with the known, or we seek the security of our loved ones. We seek the security of a good social justice system, and we seek the security of a planet which isn't burning up, and so many other ways. So for all those different reasons, intention arises, because I would say we are in pursuit of well-being. So the Buddhist teaching takes that and then says, well, there is this possibility. There is the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated, the unborn, Nibbana, the deathless, the island, the harbor. If there were not that possibility, we'd never be free from this constant changing samsaric situation. And so then you hear that, and I suffer, you suffer. So the Buddha uses that very human predicament of wanting to go beyond suffering, and he points to something profoundly difficult to understand, the liberation of the mind through his own experience. He says to us, you can do that. You can go that pathway too, and this is how you do it. So our yearning, whenever we suffer, we're going to try to get out of it, right? If we do it wrong, we'll suffer again, the same cycle. But if we do it right, that very suffering will take us to the end of suffering. And so our tensions arise quite naturally from the natural, wanting to be, well, we want well-being. We want well-being for everyone around us. So say, the argument I had with this guy over here, I don't know who it is, and this is day after, and then my mind says, I'm going to tell him. I'm going to really tell him off. I'm going to tell him. And the other mind says, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm going to tell him. Don't do it. And then I yell at him. And I said, ugh, I told him. And then I get the regret and the remorse, suffering. Same pattern next week. I'm going to tell him, don't do it. I'm going to tell him don't do it. And I don't do it. And I have some distance. And I don't get caught by that tendency of revenge, say. And I see the freedom of that. So the next time the intention to do harmful things arises, there's another intention. That's not the pathway to the end of suffering. There's this other possibility, which is restraint. So I won't do that. So we have intentions which are grounded in ignorance, and we have intentions which are grounded in wisdom. And our experience in life hopefully takes us to intentions which are grounded in the experience of wisdom and freedom from suffering. So liberation is very natural in that way, if we listen to ourselves. So here's the question. Ajahn, I often feel myself in a prolonged hour or more state of blankness, which is equal to no thought, not sleepy. Because this state can be for very long, I often find it a waste of time or fall into light sleep even if I wasn't sleepy before. Please advise what I should do. Well, I mean, there's something that knows you're in a blank state, right? I mean, I don't know who I'm pointing to. Oh, Mr. or Madam Blank State. Something in there knows that. Otherwise, you couldn't describe it. So my suggestion would be, what is it that knows that this is a blank state? What is it? And that would be like, the language there might be, who is experiencing the blank state, which is the huato, or the who am I practice. In Chan you have that, right? In the Chinese tradition, huato, is that pronounced correctly, the who am I? Yeah? So that would be one way. Oh, who's experiencing the blank state? And then it's the mind knowing the mind. Awareness knowing awareness. Or you might just change posture. Just do walking for a long, long time. There is a danger of passivity, where the mind kind of settles into something, and there isn't the brightness of inquiry and investigation. So I don't know this person, but that's what I would intuitively say to you, like, how come you know that it's blank? What is it that knows that? Just as I can know something more coarse, like anger, it's a more coarse state of mind. Well, blankness has a quality different than non-blankness. And what is it that knows? And hopefully that would take you back to awareness itself. They're good questions. Here we go. You said in meditation it's best not to focus on an object. Yeah, I guess I did. I take it back. As a layperson who has just started short-term meditation, I find I needed to have a focus. Hence, I always had an object. For example, when doing the walking meditation this morning, I was busy counting to 20, then being mindful. How does one maintain mindfulness without being focused on something? Yeah, I think we all begin that way. But, I began by counting steps, by walking backwards, by counting spoonfuls of rice, and by following the breath by counting to 10 backwards, and I tried all of that. But I was still just trying to control. And I felt, well, that's not freedom. Right? So maybe Majjhima way to think about this, okay, take some kind of technique and do it, but then just let go and see if you can just be patient with the thinking mind. Just be patient and just allow these moments, these gaps of awakening. Awakening is like a gap between thoughts. And what we want to do is make those gaps larger. But that kind of mindfulness of always being dependent on the object, my interest was that which is not an object. So I began to see, well, if I'm always attentive to objects, how can I realize the objectless? If I'm always attentive to the conditionality, how can I realize the unconditioned? This is the way I operate, my mind operates. So, but it doesn't have to be one or the other. But, so maybe to this person, okay, try 20 minutes of holding your attention on the object or whatever, and then just let go and see what happens. And can you make your focus awareness itself? Does it need to be anchored in an object? Can you make the focus mind knowing mind? Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't work for you. But certainly, I think as you move through your own spiritual development, what becomes very apparent is the whole sense of the doer, me doing something to get something, to hold on to something. That becomes a very coarse kind of object, actually. And certainly, so this person's a beginner meditation and helps them hook into the present moment. Good enough. But at some point, all of us, I think there's a sort of intuition of dropping techniques and just like shikantaza in the Japanese system of choiceless awareness, where you prefer the awareness now as to the object's awareness. So I'm not sure where everyone's at in meditation, but certainly that's a kind of pretty common movement through the meditation practices. So it's good to have a kind of repertoire of techniques, metta bhavana, anapanasati, some mantra meditations. So say, we'll finish this session with the Buddha's words on loving kindness. That's a lovely, lovely way to meditate, is you take a sutra like that, take it in English, and say it slowly. This is what should be done. And pause. By one who is skilled in goodness. Pause. And who knows the path of peace. Pause. So you lay out the sutra in a very, very deliberate and mindful way, so that the words themselves resonate very beautifully, but also you get between the pauses of words, you get the silence of awareness. This is what should be done. Silence. By one who is skilled in goodness. So that's another way, kind of skillful way to do it, and that engages the intellect, opens the heart, and you can get to that silent awareness in that way. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. A lot of it is just trusting in your own experiment. That's very important. That each of us we're all intelligent, we all have wisdom, and we all suffer. and there's something in us which is intuitive and just, I think, feels, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. So if I say something or other teacher says something that doesn't work for you, it's not that you can't meditate or that the teacher's wrong. It just doesn't work. So be very pragmatic and say, well, what does work? What has a good effect? And what has a good effect on my heart and my mind? And then you find your own way. Because there's so much in Buddhism, isn't there? There's so many different ways to do this. I'm getting there. Only 20 more to go. Here you go. What's your tip to address a restless and wandering mind when one could not concentrate during meditation? Patient endurance and boundless compassion. That's a very good line. When I like to use, in terms of samma sankappa, right thinking, I like to use language which reminds me of an attitude. I do that a lot. So I know in my early years there was a lot of restlessness and so on, and then I would just pick up this 2 words, infinite patience, 4 words, infinite patience, boundless compassion. So my mind would become total scattered mess, and then I'd notice it, infinite patience, boundless compassion, infinite patience, boundless compassion. So what I was putting into the endless rubbish of my thinking mind was a suggestion, but it was using language. So now my attention is absorbed with all kinds of habitual thoughts, and I notice that. So I'm making attention. Okay, what if you put a different thought in there? But make the thought significant. So, infinite patience, boundless compassion. I did that for 2 years. Not that that's not the only thing I did, but as I did it, it would always bring up a kind of attitude, which, be patient, boundless compassion, but be accepting, infinite patience, boundless compassion. And just keep doing that. A lot of training is like that. It's like music training, like if you play, or whatever you play, whatever instrument you play, training takes a long, long time, doesn't it? And if I'm not a musician, but if you're a professional musician, you know the subtlety of body movement and instrument is incredibly subtle. So in the same way, if you're training the mind, you want to just see, okay, to develop the skills can take a long, long time. So it's more of a marathon than a sprint. And as I always say, like Ajahn Chah would say to me, I was too fiercely, I was very much goal-oriented, so I tried much too hard and didn't give good results. And Ajahn Chah said, you just got here and you want to be the Buddha. Your mind's a total mess, and you want to be the Buddha overnight. Just relax, give it 5 years. What? But he was right. He was absolutely right. And that, creating, like using thought to create attitudes is a very skillful use of thought. Infinite patience, balance, compassion. So if you develop, if you're understanding yourself and, where you get caught up, when you get hung up and things like that, and then you get some insight, then develop language around a suggestion of what you could do, rather than a kind of imperative, I shouldn't be this way. I should be more mindful or something. But no, like, just be patient. And that's right thinking, because it's coming from a good place and it's coming from your own wisdom. So what tips? Tips was infinite patience, balance, compassion, to bring in that language and just see in that moment, patience. Yeah, it's all right. And then it stirs up again. Infinite patience, balance, compassion, and that would settle the mind. But also that why should the sitting be peaceful? Right? Why should it be peaceful? Who says? Who says your emotional system right now is geared for peace? Maybe it's geared for restlessness. So, restlessness feels this way. So then trying to get rid of restlessness makes you more restless. So first and foremost, the awakened mind says, really restless today. And then what might I do? Okay, infinite patience, balance, compassion. So you introduce from the awake mind right thinking, rather than just repressive thoughts, I shouldn't be this way, or something like that. It's not violent. Buddhism is very compassionate, very kind, and in the way you apply effort in your own heart and mind. Does chanting or thinking of someone like Buddha help the mind keep concentration? However, some school of thoughts discourage meditators from having a vision as a focus, as they could have negative consequences for a layperson. Rubbish. I don't believe that. It's intention, right? Like if I bring up an image which is beautiful, an image of my mom, an image of the Buddha, it makes me feel good. So why not? Well, why wouldn't you do that? If I bring up an image of the guy I hate next door, well, okay, go for it, but you're going to have problems with that. So imagery is fine. I don't have a visual mind. I can't imagine a pencil, so my mind doesn't do that. So I've never developed visualization. But what's the intention? What's the intention? If I bring forth an image of Luang Por Sumedho, say, my teacher, I do it verbally. I do it emotionally. I bring up an image of him. Luang Por, may you be well. That feels great. That feels really, really great. And I can do it again. Luang Por, may you be well. And then Ajahn Pasano, may you be well. And I can go through. So I can use imagery to bring forth wholesome states of mind. Fine. Why not? Chanting, like for me, the first few years were very difficult, as I say. And the second year, I was in a really backwoods monastery. There were only 5 monks. No one spoke English. The food was pretty rough. People very poor, but very generous. So I was well cared for in that sense. And I had no one to talk to. I had no books. So it was like cultural shock. Nothing in my culture now to stimulate me. And it was quite difficult. But then I picked up the Patimokkha. I said, okay, that's what a monk should do. I was still a Samanera. I'll memorize that. And that was a really lifesaver, I think. I mean, I can't remember so long ago, but then I had something to hook into. And a really good project. And that was a really strong object. But it was an object which I really needed at that time to keep grounding myself into this very problem of restlessness. And then the result would be that I would like do 45 minutes of walking meditation and learning chanting, and then I'd sit quietly for 45 minutes. So I started to alternate those two, and I'd learn the Patimokkha on Pindapad and things like that. So I did use a lot of chanting in those days. Now my voice is shot. I can't even chant. So there are those ways of grounding yourself. So I suppose what I'm saying is learn to ground yourself, but also see if it's not just about the object, there is this peaceful background. Hey, listen, it's 5 o'clock, and I don't want to work you overtime. So can we turn to the Buddhist chanting book and see if we have the verses on loving kindness? Does anyone have the page? Or maybe it's here, yeah. How much? 3-2? No, that's not the one I'm looking for. I'm looking for, this is what should be done. 3-6? Okay. 3-6. Everyone with me? This is what should be done? Yeah? This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views. The pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. And let's do the closing homage in Pali. How about 26, just the Pali, page 26, Arahang, and I'll go down on the floor. Face the shrine. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Sākang Namami. Please go ahead and bow.
Last, last pay respect to Ajahn by making 3 bows.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Ajahn. Last and Ajahn off.